Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Kamala, you're fired. Get out. Get out. You're fired.
There is a yearning in our country for a president who sees the people. Who gets you and who will fight for you. That is what this election is about.
Good day and welcome to the Prime Feed News. Like the rest of the world, South Africa will be closely watching Tuesday's U.S. presidential elections with huge interest, and not a little anxiety. The polls are still showing former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris running neck and neck, making the likely impact of the elections on the world still a toss-up. For a country like Ukraine, the outcome could be existential as Kyiv and its allies have real fears that if Trump wins, he might cut off military aid to Ukraine and pressure it into an unfavorable peace deal with his apparent friend, Vladimir Putin. America's NATO partners are also watching the outcome anxiously as Trump has threatened to pull the U.S. out of the now 32-nation alliance, ostensibly for not paying its dues. Beijing is also watching the election with some apprehension. Most observers believe it would prefer a Harris presidency as Trump has threatened massive increases in tariffs on Chinese imports. But Patrick Gaspard, U.S. ambassador to South Africa from 2013 to 2017, and now head of the Center for American Progress, told Ann Bernstein, director of SA's Center for Development and Enterprise in a webinar last week that he believed China would actually prefer a Trump presidency as it would weaken the NATO alliance, which has declared both Russia and China as its rivals. In South Africa, Trump has some fans, including the likes of AfriForum, which in 2018 lobbied him to tweet about the large-scale killing of farmers and the South African government seizing land from white farmers. But it's probably a sure bet that most of South Africa and Africa are rooting for the Democratic Party candidate Harris. No one on this side of the Atlantic has forgotten that the last time Trump was in the White House, he described African nations as shithole countries. Many also recall that in his memoirs of his time as Trump's defense secretary, Mark Esper wrote that Trump once told him that the U.S. should shut down all its embassies in Africa. That obvious contempt for this continent would probably mean a President Trump Mark II would at best put little energy into relations with Africa and South Africa even if he doesn't actively downgrade relations. President Harris would sustain and probably amplify the effort President Joe Biden has devoted to improving relations with Africa. In 2022, he unveiled a sub-Saharan African strategy and hosted the first summit of African leaders in 8 years, following former President Barack Obama's first one in 2014. Biden has also promised to visit Africa for the first time as president and still plans to travel to Angola, though that will now only happen, if at all, in the truly lame duck period in December. Big uncertainties for South Africa and Africa about the next U.S. administration include the fate of the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act and the president's emergency plan for AIDS relief. For South Africa, the prospects are even less certain because the ANC government's chumminess with Putin and its sustained perceived hostility to Israel have provoked conservative, mostly Republican, legislators to call for a review of South Africa's continued participation. Losing Agoa duty-free access to the lucrative U.S. market would cost South Africa much in exports, especially of motor vehicles and also wines and fruits.
I proudly accept your nomination for President of the United States.
Joe Biden has just officially crossed the delegate threshold for the Democratic nomination for president.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump has been found guilty on all 34 charges in his hush money trial.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial.
Trump has become the first American president to be convicted of a felony in U.S. history.
The first debate of the 2024 campaign and the earliest
with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if We finally beat Medicare.
He did not do well at all. You kind of have the old man versus the con man.
Widespread panic among Democrats overnight.
Calls on President Biden to drop out of the 2024 race, extending beyond Capitol Hill.
We have here a landmark decision in American history.
The Supreme Court ruled former President Donald Trump does have immunity for some of his alleged conduct as president in his federal election interference case.
We are watching live at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, where former President Trump was speaking on the stage.
The assassin's bullet came within a quarter of an inch of taking my life.
Joe Biden says he is stepping down. We have it. We do now know that Joe Biden is endorsing Kamala Harris.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Kamala Harris. It's up. Good debate.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
Kamala is brats. Harris already has Taylor Swift in her corner, former President Barack Obama, Bruce Springsteen, Samuel L. Jackson, Beyonce.
It's town.
Trump's biggest celebrity backer to date may be Elon Musk.
Take over, Elon. Just take over.
But of course, Musk is also supporting Trump's campaign financially.
Republican nominee Donald Trump made a quick campaign stop at a McDonald's to work.
I love McDonald's. I love jobs. I like to see good jobs.
9 days and counting before the election, Donald Trump chose the historic Madison Square Garden.
Literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
This was a hate rally. The race between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris remains as tight as ever.
Vice President Kamala Harris gave her final campaign speech in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday night.
We have to stop pointing fingers and start locking arms.
51 million Americans have already voted this election in a battle that will decide who runs the world's most powerful and influential country for the next 4 years.